One thing that I see showing up a lot in the recovery journey is this real fear of fullness. I'm not sure this gets talked about enough because it happens so frequently and it can be something that really holds a lot of people back when it comes to recovery. The fear of fullness is such a great tactic from your eating disorder to really get you to stop acting in the now with a future promise of action or a permission that will come later. Obviously, that never happens, but that's the promise in the moment. And it gets you to stop whatever pro-recovery action you were going to take. It's just that classic promise that the eating disorder uses in loads of different ways, but it's that idea that you can do the hard thing later, just not now. And only this time it's using the excuse of you don't want to be too full. It's this idea of not eating now so that you can really enjoy your food later, that you have to be really hungry, that food has to be so exciting for it to be enjoyable and for it to be allowed later. This is just a mechanism that drives restriction in the present. And what we know about recovery is that it happens in the present. It doesn't happen later. It doesn't happen in the future when you promise yourself, your eating disorder promises you that you're going to have that permission. It happens in the now. But if you are in recovery, if you are properly committed to getting yourself to a place of full freedom, then the only answer is to respond completely to that hunger in the present, regardless of how full you might be in the future. Because also, the chances are that if you are in any form of energy deficit, you'll still be hungry later. Your eating disorder doesn't like you to think about that reality because it means that you will consume more food. But the truth is that this belief that the eating disorder is telling you, this voice saying, well, don't eat now because you won't be hungry later, that's probably not true. You are in recovery. You have got a significant energy debt to make up. Chances are you're far more hungry than your eating disorder wants you to admit. And even if you're not, when that later time comes, your commitments to recovery say that you eat regardless of those hunger signals. Even if you're full, if that is your commitment, you follow through on your actions. And this is where mechanical eating is really valuable. It's in knowing that there is a baseline amount that you are committed to eating, that it kind of doesn't matter how you feel physically or indeed emotionally or mentally, you've committed to eating it. And the only thing you have to do is mechanically put it in your mouth and get it down. And I think that having that commitment actually really does relieve some of that anxiety about the fear of fullness, because sometimes that fear of fullness is about, well, what if I get hungry later? Well, great. If I do, I've already made this commitment that I'm still going to eat that thing. And one thing that I do want to touch on is that simply by having this fear of fullness is a classic response to a scarcity mindset. If your body believes that food is a scarce resource and that a physical sensation of fullness means that you've used a large amount of that resource, then no doubt it is going to have some negative emotions that it's going to generate to get you to stop using resources at a rate that it believes is unsustainable. Now, we know that that's not true. We know that actually we aren't in a place of food scarcity. It's just that your body is interpreting that. So what we have to do in order to get out of this is to show your body that actually this feeling of fullness is safe, that you are in a place of food abundance, that you can afford to eat to full satisfaction, eat to fullness at every single opportunity. Every single time your brain or body sends you a message to say that it's hungry, you need to respond to that to show your body that feeling full is safe, that you will have more food later, that there is an adequate and abundant amount of food in your environment. And of course, we have to acknowledge that the fullness itself isn't the problem. It's actually the meaning that your brain is attaching to that sensation of fullness. Often it is going to trigger feelings of weight gain, that you've eaten too much, that you've eaten too quickly, that you're greedy. And it's about catching yourself and recognizing that these are just thoughts that have been generated from a physical sensation. And if you can reframe that to be something much more objective and much more neutral, then it can be really helpful. I definitely found that reframing fullness as this is just a physical sensation. This just means that I have eaten and I have honored my hunger. I have honored my body in the way that it needs to, and this is self-supporting. This is what I need to do to build trust with my body. I found that to be a really helpful way of getting through the really negative and distressing emotions that my eating disorder tied to a physical sensation. So just to come back to, this is just a physical sensation. The meaning is the problem. There is nothing that I have done that is wrong about honoring my hunger. And to be honest, one of the other things that really helped me was just to get honest with myself and say, do you know what? Fullness isn't that bad. It passes. It is just not the end of the world. Your eating disorder, and mine did too, made it feel like it was wrong, that I had done something terribly, terribly wrong. But coming back to the reality of, I know that this passes. I will get full in my life and it will pass. It always has, was actually quite helpful. It kind of just took the power out of those emotions and out of those thoughts. Yes, of course, I encourage doing whatever you can to make that physical sensation more tolerable, if that means changing into more comfortable clothes, if that means a heat pack, if it means lying down. Absolutely, make it easy on yourself. But also just remind yourself that it's not that bad, that it is going to pass. And you know what doesn't? Is an eating disorder. An eating disorder does not pass unless you actively challenge every single aspect of it. And so that's where we do get to acknowledging that this fear of fullness is part of the eating disorder neural network, and it is worth challenging. It is worth going out of your way to eat when you're terrified of being full, to fully honor all of your hunger, whether that is mental, whether that is physical, but to honor it to a point where you are physically satisfied, where you are physically very full, and having that commitment in there as well that you are going to follow through on every single other recovery action later in the day. That simply being full doesn't mean that you can't eat further. And I think it's also worth noting here that your mental hunger is probably not going to line up perfectly with your physical hunger for so many reasons, mainly to do with how energy intensive it is to send physical hunger cues. Your mental hunger will likely be raging way more than your physical hunger. So that means that if you are honoring all of your mental hunger, you are likely to be in a place where physically you are full. Physically, you may well be uncomfortable. And that is okay. And in fact, I think we have to acknowledge that that is the likely outcome of you honoring all of your mental hunger, which is crucial if you want to reach a place of full recovery, both nutritionally and from a neural rewiring perspective. So that really is the message for today, that fear of fullness is definitely real. I think we can understand that it comes from a place of scarcity, that your brain is worried that there is not going to be enough in the environment in future. But your job in recovery is to prove to your brain, prove to your body that that is simply not the case, that there is abundant food now, there is abundant food later, and that you can trust your body, and that feeling full is not a sign of danger, that feeling full is safe, that you can trust your body. So if you're in this place, if you're finding that fear of fullness really hard to work through, I hope that you've taken something from this. I hope you've taken a bit of solace, a bit of solidarity, and that you can really just keep pushing through, because really, truly, feeling full won't last forever, but your eating disorder will unless you challenge it completely and fully, and you reach that place of nutritional rehabilitation and you've done the work to rewire any of these beliefs around the fear of fullness. So take care, and I will chat to you soon.